Hello and welcome to the ZillionGrid White Paper presentation. The customary white paper describes in technical detail what our plans are for the ZillionGrid and how we will develop it and what our innovations are. The first thing I would like to say is that the ZillionGrid is a first generation. We will have 3 generations or 3 phases. This is the first. In the first phase, we will build the grid, build the API, and build software, turnkey software applications. In phase 2, we will zoom in to the central part of the grid, where we will build peer-to-peer databases. And in the third phase of the grid, we will have a complete blockchain database network. I'll go into more detail. So if we look at the white paper, first of all, we will go over a table of contents. I'll repeat from the first video. I already explained that the ZillionGrid has 3 main components. The grid itself, which is composed of 3 server types, class A, B, and C. Media servers, database servers, and blockchain servers all working together. That is the network, platform, infrastructure, whatever we want to call it. On top of that infrastructure, we have an API, a universal REST API that talks to all the resources, databases, media servers, and blockchains. We are blockchain agnostic, which means we have multi-chain environment where we have multiple coins, Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Zillion Coin, Litecoin, Dash, whatever is out there can be connected to the grid. So we are not a one coin environment. So that is the first component. The second component of the grid is the universal REST API. You can talk to that grid, to those resources, using a REST API, which can be integrated with any language out there, scripting language, PHP, .NET, C#, C++, anywhere, you name it. And then on the other part of the infrastructure, we have the turnkey software solutions, which will be a suite, an office suite, a communication suite, everything that you're used to, but in this case, it runs on the grid. And we have integrated blockchain functionality. So that is what you will see in this table of contents. So I'll go over it quickly and then go into a little more detail. This video won't take very long, but I wanted to present it in a way that after you see it, you have a better understanding about what it is that we do. And if you want more detail, the white paper is available at zillionpress.com. So I talked about the decentralized blockchain infrastructure. I talked about the decentralized grid. So we have the server classes, A, B, and C, the hubs and clusters. The grid management happens through software. We call it the grid or the hub director, which is eventually machine learning, artificial intelligence, algorithms that will route all the traffic, all the requests to the nearest server, to the closest to you. We also have the part of the grid, of course, grid management, the blockchain part. We have wallets and CPU miners. We have GPU miners, the nodes, master nodes, and then our IoT devices for later on. Grid access and file management. The Zillion login, we can give you access with your smartphone, QR code, so you don't have to deal with passwords anymore. We have the Zillion seal, which is a asset validation and authentication, which means that you put an asset on the grid, you have a digital fingerprint. The Zillion seal will, at the moment that you request it, verify it and authenticate it and say, this is the unaltered document that you have put up there. Meaning, nobody can modify it. There is no virus injection, malware, what have you, unless we detect it. So we also have Zillion sharding for file management. So it's a file storage also where we break it up in parts, and we store it over the network. And it uses IPFS for now. We have also Zillion, our own sharding mechanism. Once we go into phase 2, peer-to-peer databases will implement sharding on the database level. So, different levels. We also have then the second component is the Universal API, which is a REST API, easy to integrate. We do all the hard work for you. All you do is connect, get a token for a session, and access whatever you want to access on the grid. So we do this with scripting languages, programming languages, and then the crypto payment gateway for microtransactions. Here, microtransactions. We also have recurring payment and subscriptions, and we have, again, any blockchain existing and for the future. So it's not locked in, it's a dynamic platform. We go with whatever the market brings us. So you can secure your intellectual property rights, digital fingerprints. We can also accommodate syndication, as we indicate here. We have our certificate of authenticity, your certificate of manufacturing, your certificate of origin. All these you can register on the blockchain and then later on manipulate or present or sell or license through our micro payment system. And then the software factory, which we start out with our own Zillion browser, which connects to the grid. It's like the window to the grid. We have also the Zillion Mail, which is encrypted communications, including audio and video. We have the Zillion Wall and Zillion People. This is our social network site, which is also stored. Everything is stored IPFS, distributed databases. So we don't have a central point of data storage. Nobody can accumulate it or sell it. It's a complete different system. And then our Zillion Suite, which is our office suite on the grid. That is what we start out with. We have many, many more applications, but this is what we start out with. Okay, so scrolling through this white paper, I'll go quickly over all the different parts. I went through the index. Now I go in a little bit more detail. Again, we're going very fast. This will not take a lot of time, so you can quickly pick up on whatever interests you the most. The abstract talks about what is our motivation to do this. It explains about the current state of blockchains. It's a very slow architecture. We all know the limitations of blockchain. It is a financial instrument. You cannot really run apps on it. It doesn't have storage. All it does is take care of financial transactions, and we extended that functionality because it's so incredibly revolutionary that we extended it so you can really do something more with it than just financial transactions. So that is in the abstract. You will also see that we go a little bit more detail on how technical it goes. We have here, it's a complete application infrastructure. The three main components, the network part with the server classes A, B, and C, which is what I just mentioned. We have the Universal API, and we have the software factory. Again, I keep repeating it because it is a very simple infrastructure, but it is important that you understand the different parts of it so you can see how it applies to you and what you can do with it. So Class A servers are the media and storage servers. Class B are the database servers, any database, it doesn't matter. MySQL, Microsoft SQL, Oracle, Postgres, whatever is out there can be stored in it, and the API will take part of the communication, so you don't have to worry about any of the specifics on how to communicate with the database. We do it all for you. And then the Class C server is a blockchain server or multiple blockchain servers based upon which coin we are running on this infrastructure. And then also we have Class D and E for later on, which is the user node, which is some kind of a savings server or mechanism, and then a artificial intelligence optimized GPU system for specific AI functionalities. So if we scroll down, we talk about the first phase, the grid structure, the way we have it now, which is call it phase 1 or generation 1. The second phase will be the peer-to-peer implementation, and then the third phase is the actual blockchain to database conversion or expansion, basically. So Here then it goes into, it talks about the three different parts, the components. I start with the decentralized grid, which you should envision in the middle, which is the infrastructure of all the hardware, because that is the engine that drives the whole grid. And then we have the API and the software factory. So this explains the decentralized grid, what it is. It talks about the topology. It talks about the server classes. Here we have a little bit of a, you know, a detail of what it is. Again, server class A, B, and C. This white paper will be continuously updated. We didn't want to throw too much at you, so some segments are very, very brief because we wanted to make you aware of the fact that they exist. But as we grow this, we will fill in more of the details so you can keep up. So the hub clusters here. Again, this is a simple diagram where we have the hubs are the group of the same servers. For instance, all the database servers are organized in a hub and then in a cluster. So you see that here. The same with the media servers and then the blockchain servers. So all of these make up a total of the what we call the grid. So the management on how are these actually talking together and working together, and that is what the hub manager services do. Each server has a agent installed that talks to the grid, the hub director. So the metrics are always communicated, so we can keep track of what is happening on the grid, which server is available, which server is getting full, which server is getting slow. So we keep track of all that, so we can create an optimal performing environment. That was our premise. That was what we wanted to do from the beginning. It talks about the controller here. The server agent is what I talked about, and then the grid blockchain, which is so we have the database servers, the media servers, the blockchain servers take care of everything that is required: mining, master nodes, keeping the blockchain operational, taking care of the transactions, and making sure that it happens in a rapid fashion, so we can accommodate whichever traffic is being thrown at it, basically. So first there is a CPU phase, there is a GPU phase, and then ASICs for the coins that do ASICs. But most of the time we will focus on keeping it CPU as long as possible, and then switching to GPU, so anybody can participate without having to spend a ton of money. That is our desire. So here we have the Zillion server nodes, aka master nodes. This is another way to secure the chain and to create revenue for whoever runs that. Anybody can do this, by the way. It doesn't take a whole lot. You can do it at home, you can do it in the office, you can set up a VPS if you want to. Anybody can do this. Later on we'll add IoT devices. We have a couple of those, but that's not our primary focus, but it is available. Then I talked about the grid access and file management. I talked about the login with your smartphone. I talked about the Zillion seal, which is, sealing, your asset, your document, for authentication and validation that it is, what it is, what unaltered, what you put there is what is being sent back to you. We talked about sharding. We talked about Zillion containers, something very, very cool. It is a way of putting a new way of putting websites together. I keep using the name websites. It's something else now because we don't use HTTP. We use IPFS, so it's decentralized, but still we package it, hence the word container, and you can access it on the grid via the @ sign or the hash sign, like a tag. But there will be a page behind it. Very, very exciting stuff. We have it working. It will be released very soon. So here we have the ZLN protocol to communicate with the grid, what I was just mentioning, the hash and the tag and the @ sign for addressing specific profiles, pages for you, for anybody, for your company, for your event, whatever you want to put out there. So if we look at then the second part, and again, I know I'm going very fast, but I don't want to make it too long. The second part is the universal API. This is the most very, very exciting part because it makes the blockchain and the database and the media grid very easily accessible. You can, as you see here, you can run it with PHP, you can run it with .NET, you can run it with Node.js, everything that's out there, JavaScript, you name it. And then here we have the payment gateway for the transactions, and then here we have the intellectual property for your that is actually the ownership of your assets in whichever form that might be, video files, documents, images, anything. So we chose REST API because it is universal. Any language can integrate with it, and it's very, very easy to program. You don't need any special knowledge. Most of the millions of programmers can access this directly. Whether it be scripting languages, programming languages, platforms and access, the crypto payment gateway is what we call it. Instead of credit cards, you can do transactions, payments, subscriptions using any of the coins that you prefer. Microtransactions, recurring transactions, any coin, as we just mentioned also. And then the intellectual property and digital asset library is what we call it. That is the cornerstone of the digital assets that we make available for integration with programs, mobile programs, business to business, business to consumer, anything that you want to do. So it talks about syndication, it talks about certificate of authenticity, again for making sure that you can prove that you are the one, the owner or the creator of the asset. Then the third part, so the ZillionGrid, third component is the software factory. The software factory are turnkey software solutions. That means that you either download it and you can run it right away, like a word processor, an Excel, an Outlook equivalent, or for enterprises you can customize it for your needs. So you can say, okay, I need 10 seats for this, pay for 10 licenses, and off you go. Turnkey. The first programs that we made, the first applications will be the Zillion browser, and we chose our own browser because, look, we don't do tracking, we don't follow you, we don't care what you do on the grid. So no Google tracking, no Facebook pixels, none of that. So we started from the ground up with a brand new browser to access the grid and all its functionalities. Tracking is available if you turn it on, and it is stored locally in a database that you can resell your data later for money right away. That is the big difference. But more about that later on. Zillion Mail is also a program, an application that's ready to go. That is communications that are encrypted, including audio and video. The Zillion Wall and Zillion People is the name of our social initiative that is similar to Facebook, is similar to Twitter, is similar to Slack, all these programs that you use to communicate in a group, in your company, in your team, for your project. We also have the Zillion Suite, which is an office suite, everything Microsoft Word compatible, Excel compatible, all these things. Free, by the way. So again, this was a very, very brief, quick, fast overview of the white paper. It's 23 pages long. It's a first version, and as we expand on our technology and if things evolve, we will update this white paper. I'm glad you were able to watch this video and tune in for the next one very soon. Thanks for your time.